Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday edition this week of Just Another G.I. Joe show, episode number 38. Fred is still MIA. He had I think it was a wedding this week, and then he's out for another show, I believe. Bobby is somewhere in Maine. Rick is entertaining the in-laws, and so you're stuck with me and John.
I wouldn't call it stuck. I'd say more like punished.
Well, maybe the better of the two. The better of the group. Let's put it that way. So we're going to, we won't go as long as usual. We're going to talk about a few things that have happened in the last couple of weeks. One thing I'll go into screen share here in just a second over some other stuff. But, oops, what did I do? This is where Fred would say something snivy about how I'm not very tax savvy.
Or Tiger Force is the problem.
Whatever. So we're going to talk about the spoiler if you haven't gotten your mail yet. FSS shipment number 3 has arrived. Yeah, 3. And for people who know, it's Cobra Commander and Candor. And these pictures came in backwards. The back side and the front side. Oh, wrong picture. All right. So Cobra Commander, you can see the picture, right, John?
Yeah, I see it fine. Looks good.
Right.
Nice
So Cobra Commander came in. These are John's pictures. I got mine. I'm really happy with it because I wanted an Arctic Cobra Commander. The only issue I have, I guess, is maybe the helmet being too big, maybe, or there's an issue with the helmet. That's usually the helmets are kind of like really fitted on, really snug, and this one is not.
No, it definitely doesn't want to stay on even when you rotate the head down forward to put it in the proper proportion. I think a lot of the blame for that maybe lies in the way the collar sets. The helmet seems to just kiss it and not quite let it snug down on the head, I think. But
right.
Yeah.
And then and then another thing, some people pointed it out, and I kind of saw it a little bit when I put him up next to someone else, that he was a little shorter than normal. And I haven't compared him to my other Cobra Commanders. I compared him to the Ice Viper officer, which there was a significant difference in height on that.
Well, if you take a peek under the long coat, you can see the legs they used for it were from the Resolute Cobra Commander, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the pouches on the left side of the leg and such. And that figure, the helmet just fell off while I turned him upside down to look. That figure is not, I mean, he's very middle of the road in terms of height. So, and for me personally, yeah, man, maybe he's a little short, but I can dig it. It doesn't bother me that much because he's always been a very nondescript character anyway in terms of his appearance and size and build. So it doesn't bother me. I can see where some people might be bothered by it a little bit because the Ultimate Cobra Commander from Retaliation Wave 3.5 really set the bar in terms of the sculpt design and all that, and he was a little on the tall side. So, but as far as that goes, it doesn't bother me a whole lot. I can see where you might not care for it, but I don't think it's a big sticking point. The overall design of the figure, if you got the October Guard Convention set back in, I believe, 2012, then you've seen the skirt piece and stuff before because it was what was used on the Iron Grenadier from a canceled Hasbro six-pack a few years previous. So it was nice to finally see it on the character it was intended for, I think. The collar piece is nice. It sits down really well. I think as far as the figure looking in your collection, if you put him side by side with like the Arctic Dr. Mindbender or something, I think you're going to get a really nice pairing in terms of aesthetic. If you want to do some of the character designs from Cobra Law, obviously you've already got Mindbender and him, and you've got Nemesis Enforcer and Pythona, and it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to batch yourself a globulus using the boss fight tail and some other parts and things like that. There's a few other cast heads out there, so that whole kind of thing could be grouped together on a shelf and would probably look pretty good, I think. But it really just depends on what your tastes are. A lot of guys don't like Cobra Law, so.
Well, here's my problem. I just looked underneath mine,
Mm-hmm.
and his left leg is coming apart at the joint.
Oh, it hasn't been screwed together properly.
Yeah, so part of it's hanging off, and the other part's on.
That may have something to do with the way he's standing funny.
Yeah, shit. I guess I have to send a picture to Angie.
Oh, I think as long as it's just a screw that needs to be tightened up, it's something that you can take care of yourself without having to mail back and forth.
Well, no, it's it's at his knee.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, like half of it's hanging off and half of it's on.
After we're done, send me a picture and I'll see if it's something you can fix yourself. And if not, absolutely contact them. And I'm sure, they've always been real good about swapping stuff out. So I don't think there's any reason that would change with this.
That's a little irritating.
Yeah, it is strange. One of the things I did like about the Cobra Commander especially is the inclusion of the staff, the Serpent staff. Really cool. And the G11 rifle is a nice choice for him as well. Anybody who's not familiar with that particular real-world weapon or the real-world version of that weapon, it fires 3 rounds in succession, 3-round bursts, and it fires so quickly that the 3rd round has already left the chamber and exited the barrel before the gun begins to rise from muzzle blowback. So it's a really super high-tech weapon.
And then keep going the wrong way. Then we have the backside of Candor. Here we go.
Why are you always staring at your butts, Mike?
I don't know, man. Someone asked me. But yeah, Candor pretty much was a recolor of Big Boa, which I'm really super excited about. But this one here seems to have, trying to think if mine did or didn't. I've seen a lot of quality control issues on this one in particular.
Oh, like on the paint on the visor?
Paint on the visor, which I'm looking at mine.
Yeah, mine's got a couple of blurbs on it as well. It's not bad, but
no, but I've seen some that were pretty bad.
Well, not to defend a bad paint app from the factory, but anytime you do red over black or any bright color over a darker color, it's hard to get a good smooth, crisp paint line. So that may have something to do with it. Again, not making excuses, but that is something to take into consideration. And in truth, we've been really lucky to this point, I think, with the club, because by and large their figures have been a standard, really high standard for paint decos and designs. That's one thing you can't really take away from them, knock on wood, that they've always done very well for the most part. There have been, as with anything else, there have been issues here and there, but they've been few and far between. So but the visor on the helmet, if it's black over red, you're going to have a harder time touching it up. If you're any good with a brush. If it's red over black, that's pretty easy. I wouldn't be afraid to try to do it. I don't think anybody else should be either. But I can understand where some people might say, well, I paid a bunch for this figure. It needs to be perfect. I get it, but at the same time, there are going to be mistakes out there. And I mean, this year's concept's a good example. The heads for Major Blood, not having the mustache painted on and stuff like that, something they caught and had the fix already on the way before the con even got here. So that's great, but it was too late to actually get it done and get it in our hands on time. Still, they took care of it. So, that's really all you can expect by the time it's all said and done. And I think they continue to do a good job of that. The Kangor figure overall, if you missed out on Big Boa, you got to be doing the happy dance right now.
Yep.
Because that was all the way back in FSS1, and he obviously was the star of that set in terms of secondary market value, popularity, that kind of thing. And in addition to that, this time you get a brand new tool of the vintage South American exclusive Kangaroo. And this is a much nicer tool than the vintage figure is, because it's cut original. The original figure not a lot of people know this because not a lot of people have seen it in hand, but the original figure, the tooling for it, the ears are misaligned, and there's a pretty egregious mold line there that's out of alignment on the original tool for these, given that they're so old and stuff. But I wish that we would have gotten to the other three figures in the set. However, it's nice to get this one because it is unique, and the other three animals are predators. The kangaroo, not so much. So that's kind of cool. And the paint job on the kangaroo is really nice. A little touch with the black on the feet and on the hands and stuff. That's pretty neat. The Cobra logos on the back of the gloves in black are really crisp and stand out nicely. The color palette for the figure is nice. I would have liked to have seen the skin tone be a little bit darker, but as I saw somebody mention at some point on the internet the other day, it was probably a bit of a compromise so that the people who didn't get him as Big Boa could, get a copy of the head from China or a cast one in silver and do a swap and be happy.
See that? I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, there've been for a while. There've been some of the early FSS heads popping up from China on eBay, and you could get Topside and Big Boa and a few of the others that were factory mispaints or overruns or something of that nature. And obviously they're they're factory pieces, so they're easy to swap. So if you want a Big Boa, you go that route for sure. If you missed out on it the first time. There, as with Big Boa, originally my original criticism on him was that you've got a red paint stripe down the center of the pants. It's not evident in that photo to simulate the groin padding that a boxer might wear. And I would like to have seen something changed on that, but again, that would be tooling a new piece, and that's beyond what the club would do at this point. He also doesn't have the color paint hits on the boots. I believe the Big Boa, without looking at it, I believe Big Boa had silver on the tips of his boots. This one doesn't have that, but again, if you want to customize or something, you can absolutely throw that on there very easily. The colors are nice, bright, they pop. Really looks good. I mean, it's not much to say about this in the negative at all, other than the mispaint app on the visor. I was really happy the other day to see that these two came together because neither one of them were high on my personal want list necessarily, but getting them in hand, it's always really fun to be pleasantly surprised by something that you weren't expecting a lot out of. So I don't know if you felt the same way, but I hope so. I thought they were pretty cool.
Yeah, I was actually happy to get him. As I was really expecting him to be like one of the last two shipments.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the only letdown, which of course stands out this figure alone, is that the accessories you don't get with him that you did get with Big Boa.
Yeah,
is the only difference. But I mean, of course, he's displayed the way I would want Big Boa displayed, which is with both gloves on. That's about it.
Oh yeah.
Much.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of displaying in your collection, obviously you're going to put one boxing and the other one working out, with the weights and stuff. That'd be cool to really to show the difference between the two characters. I keep going back to the kangaroo. I'm sitting here looking at it and thinking how fun of an accessory that is. Strange for Joe, odd, unique, unusual, but still very fun. And for the people that don't know, and I assume at this point with the internet, there's not a lot of you, but there are some. For people who don't know, Kangor was a Brazilian repaint of, obviously, a Big Boa that came in a set of four individual figures from Brazil, like I said, South America. And each one had an animal companion. There was Tigor, Felino, Kangor, and Urzor. And the animals were a tiger, a lion, a bear, and the kangaroo. The figures are all straight repaints of US versions with some unique colored accessories. The Urzor figure in particular is visually striking. He's neon green with a bright purple weapon and a really cool painted on Cesar Romero style mustache. So
yeah.
If you don't know anything about him, you might want to look up some pictures and learn a little bit of Joe history, because this is a nice little touch. And this is also the kind of thing that I expect to see in the FSS salted through, some kind of a unique foreign figure put in there every once in a while, just to throw a bone to those guys that like the unusual and the strange stuff. But it's good stuff. A good set. Like I said, I liked being pleasantly surprised by something I wasn't expecting a lot out of. So.
Yeah, same way. I mean, really nice figure. another thing we got from the club, and we'll come back to these other pictures.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, speaking of the knee piece that you're looking at right there, since you pulled it up on screen, you just need to stick that leg in some hot water and slide it over the peg. It just didn't get closed all the way when they put it together.
So put it in hot water. Then
yeah, just put it in some hot water. Yep, just take a pair of wide tweezers or gator nose pliers or something and close it up over the pin. It'll snap right on once it's warm.
Okay. Try and make a customizer out of me yet?
No, I'm trying. It's not easy.
Now let's see here if I can find. Another thing we got this past week, people don't realize that the correct style or the correct spelling hat came in the mail. People were able to get these if you pre-ordered them before the convention, and to my understanding, if you got it at the convention, as long as you filled out the information correctly, you will get a hat in the mail. I actually called about mine, and they were able to see that I did buy a hat, but didn't say which one or wasn't circled, which of course I sent a picture of the one I did have. So that verified that I had the misspelled one, missing the H, which someone said, I think it was you, said someone could have made a fortune on some H pins.
No, that wasn't me, but that is a good idea.
Yeah, someone could have made a heck of a deal on that, man. I mean, just, making some money on that. But
I think it's really cool that they were able to, something like that slipped through. I think it's cool that they were able to get it fixed and turn it around so quick. Again, people gripe about the club all the time, but in all of my dealings with them, when there's ever been a problem, it's always been top notch, service. Call Angie, talk to those guys, whatever, and they'll take care of it. So, again, if you've had a problem and you haven't got it resolved, then, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Actually, here's that comment right here. Rock Norris said it. I still think someone could have made a killing selling H pins to add to the hat.
That sounds like a Rock Norris idea right there.
Yeah. So it's that.
Now, didn't you tell me yesterday while we were sitting down here for barbecue and stuff, getting soaked in the rain?
Yeah, so I thought we'd go to, what would we call this?
The romp in the swamp.
Romp in the swamp. As you can see, John is actually seeing outside the umbrella, still getting rained on, even though there was umbrellas that Gray went to his house that brought with us. So this is down here in Dallas, Fort Worth area. I didn't get a lot of people's faces. I just got their backsides. So you got Gray, Carlos,
Esvon,
and then I think that's who was that? Josh.
Yeah, it was.
There was a few of us there.
Yeah, 8-10 people, something like that. That's fine. Yeah. I was really pleased that the people that showed up were people who actually wanted to be here and really have an interest in talking about Joe and trading around some Joe and just in general doing some fun stuff. Unfortunately, the rain that stopped at about 5 o'clock in the morning came back with a vengeance just as I was getting the first round of burgers on. And our driveway, since it's a really old house, it has a bad tendency to flood, and it flooded very bad yesterday, about 4 or 5 inches deep in some spots right in front of the grill, so Mike said I was sitting out from underneath the umbrella. It's because I was already completely drenched, like I'd went and jumped in a creek, so there was no point.
So there's no point in trying to just stay dry.
Yeah.
And then of course, just like I said, as soon as we all went inside and started eating, guess what? Stopped raining.
Gray Childs, I don't know if you guys know him or not, but if you do, you'll know he's a very gracious person. Gray ran over to his house, which is not too far from where I live, rounded up his fire pit and deck umbrella and brought him back so we could sit outside and enjoy some company and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. It's the second or third time I've done it and had people turn out here at mine and Christy's house. I hope to do it again, 6-8 months down the road, sometime in the spring next year. trying to make it kind of just an annual get together event. I'd like to do it more often than that, but honestly, I know it's very difficult. As we discussed yesterday, it's very difficult to get local collectors to all make time and show up for something. Unfortunately, I wish that I won't say that they lack dedication, but I wish that Joe seemed to be a bit more important to him, because I think as a fan, if you really want to do something, you're going to find a way to get it done. If little Timmy's got soccer practice, or you've got something that needs to be rescheduled or whatever. At work, obviously, you can't do anything about that. Work is work. But, family and other social events, if it's important, you'll be there. If it's not, well, then you won't. So,
Right. Also, if you're collecting the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom,
mhm.
For people who don't know, Pete Sinclair and Jesse Riddenrich, both, Pete worked for the Collectors Club and no longer there, and Jesse was pretty much a freelance artist for them. They started another convention called the Mutant Monster Mayhem Toy Show. It's actually taking place yesterday and today, so it's probably pretty much over with. But they had a custom one of these made for them for their show. I don't know if they were pre-orders or they had them in hand or what the case may be. I'm not familiar 100% on it, but they were going to have, if you're in there to collect, if you're collecting all of them, not only is Roman Collectibles doing one,
Mhm.
but this one here as well will have one. So you would need to check with them.
I would absolutely contact Jesse or Pete and
Yeah,
see
I
if
can
there's
remember their
availability
website.
on them. Now, let me ask. I haven't read up a lot on the convention that was this weekend. There, are they
Yeah.
holding that in conjunction with, or are they replacing Pete's Robot Convention with that? Is there more
Well, here's what the deal was: is that Pete RoboCon is doing okay. They were going to do kind of a pop swap convention,
Yeah.
and they didn't feel like it was going to be beneficial, so they changed it to this.
Hmm.
And they're pushing this Red Man out, which they're with Matt Frank as well,
Mm.
all of his artwork. So this is just something different they're doing
Oh, I
other
see.
than
I see.
robots.
Yeah.
So
Kind of an anime monster. What's
yeah,
it called? From Pacific Rim. What do they call it? Kaiju? Kind of that kind of a thing. That's kind of cool.
yeah, something along those lines. So I mean,
Christy loves Ultraman from when she was a kid. I never really got into it.
right.
But I can certainly understand the appeal. Jason did a nice job. I don't know if he collaborated with them on the color palette and stuff for that particular figure or whatever, but it did a nice job with that one. I think it looks good. The Roma Toys figure is visually really striking. Red, white, and blue is always a good combination. Barring any patriotism related emotional ties to a toy, but it's a good looking figure. And I think
Right.
that actually will look nice in the collection along with this particular one. I've got nothing but good things to say about Jason and his figures. There were a couple of small quality control issues with the figures when they were new. I'm sure they're being addressed. He said he was, and going forward, I think they're going to be really great additions to your collection. Even people who really didn't consider them compatible with G.I. Joe, even the basic figures are the same scale, have gone back and re-examined that a little bit, picked up one, checked it out, and went, oh, these are cool. It's a good place for them. So you got the corrected Major Blood sitting up there. That looks pretty good.
Yep. So you should have already, if you went to JoeCon,
Mhm.
you should already have these heads in hand and hopefully look a lot better. If you ordered the box they sent to you afterwards, you should have received them with your box. So
Oh,
hopefully everyone has the correct heads by now. Do it.
the home front hero set. Yeah.
Yeah, home front hero set. They were holding off on sending those out till all the heads came in, and they sent them all out at one time.
Yeah.
Of course, to save on shipping, which I don't blame them at all on that one. So this is the correct one. Looks 20 million times better
Yeah, I was really
than that one we
surprised.
got.
I was really surprised by the first one. Obviously, he's missing a mustache on the paint app,
And the
but
eyebrow as well.
Oh, I didn't take into consideration the eyebrow.
Yep.
Yeah, missing the mustache, and I was really surprised at how much tighter the paint apps looked on these replacement heads than the
Yep.
original one. I mean, they just seem to be a little bit finer work in terms of the hands-on application of these tampos and stuff. So I don't know if one thing had anything to do with another or any of that, but they certainly looked nice. The laser viper heads look pretty good too. The lighter color eyebrows and eyes are much different than anything we've seen in modern Joe. Pretty much, you used to see it every once in a while in the vintage Joe line, like say Charbroil from 1989. He had red eyes, red eyebrows, and then there was a variation change in the middle of the run to change the eye detail to black. And there's a few other odds and ends like that, but it's something we really hadn't seen in the modern line. Not that it's clever or unusual; it's just something of note. The paint apps, paint detail again on the club figures is really nice, and it's nice to see the bar being brought up with these replacement pieces to the standard that they set for themselves. So
Yeah, I was really, I'm really impressed with. You can just look at the one there. You can tell the light cutter on the eye patch,
yeah.
sideburns, how it looks kind of sloppy, and the head itself is missing a patch of blackness. I mean, so apparently those first rounds of heads were pretty bad. Like he's balding on the side.
Well, some
But yeah,
I don't know
uh,
as far as what the club's experience, but I know that when depending on what time of year it is and stuff, the factories can try to rush things, and quality control goes out the window a little bit just in their attempt to get things finished. Um, Going through the manufacturing process, I do know that it's a contract and they're trying to move on to the next one like any other contract job. Contractor working on your house, he's going to come out and he's going to work on it as hard as he can, but as quickly as he can. And if he can cut a corner, save a little time, and get on to the next gig and
oh
start
yeah.
making more money, well, yeah, they're absolutely going to do it. So, um,
So those are out, no con stuff. Hopefully everyone's happy as could be.
mhm.
And if you're not, write your congressman. Then we're going to go back
What do you got?
to the one you sent me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Robotech
What you
figures from
talked about.
Toonami. Yeah. Um, if you've been following this particular project, Toynami has been promoting these Robotech figures for about 2.5 years. They've been kind of on again, off again, but they're finally starting to hit. I know there was a 5-pack you could buy direct at SDCC that I think had a paint variation on the Linman May. I watched the Robotech growing up, but it wasn't something that I was religious about. I dug G-Force and Battle of the Planets and things like that, but the Robotech stuff is nice in terms of its design. It looks very correct in terms of the sculpt to anime transition, or the other way around, the anime to sculpt transition. There are a couple of things to note I should mention about the figures. The first thing is the head and hair piece for the helmet. It's very clever the way they work to transition one to the other. You have a hairpiece like you can see on the Roy Fokker picture right there, and the whole hairpiece comes off. There's a square peg block on top of the head, and then you slip a smaller hairpiece over that, and then the helmet over that. So that you can change it back and forth without actually having to do a complete head swap. It costs a little bit more in tooling, but probably saves a little bit more overall in terms of materials. Pennies a piece, but still, over the course of a line, you can see that would make a little bit of difference. The paint decos are really nice. The colors are nice and bright, clean, crisp. There's articulation at the shoulders, wrist, twist joint at the waist, ball joints at the hips, and a single knee joint. Each figure comes with about a 2-inch diameter clear acrylic stand that unfortunately doesn't stay in the feet very well because the peg is not very long, and the foot peg in the hole is shallow. However, the sculpt details on the figure are very nice. Probably my only real complaint about the figure is the missing elbow joint, and the fact that due to the animation design, the legs are a bit long in terms of proportion, so it makes the figures just slightly taller than modern GI Joe. tall hair, of course, accounts for some of that. But the figures are nice. They're well worth an investment. There's several places you can get them. About $15 is the retail price on them. If you look around, you might be able to get them for about that with free shipping and Amazon, eBay. Mike, if you'll switch to the other picture and show them what the helmet looks like when you swap everything out, I'd be grateful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there you go. You can see that if you have any of the vintage Matchbox or Harmony Gold figures, their helmets were much, much larger and out of proportion with the figure to fit over the hair. These, because the hair pieces are swappable, really do a nice job of emulating a good look without being outsized. And again, there on the helmet, you can see that the paint deco is super crisp, very, very nice. So, you know, if you dig the property, you have any attachment to it at all, I would say go out and pick these up. For the price point, they're pretty nice. One thing I would like to try to do, actually, I've been looking for years to try to find the Exo Squad Robotech Veritech Fighter. I think that probably would be just about in scale with these figures, which would be really, really nice. And I guess if you wanted to, you could use the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover Jetfire figure from SDCC a few years ago. They would probably scale up with that very nicely. So. That's all that's all there is to really say about it. What's that?
No, like I said, that would be the price point. That's pretty good price point on those.
Yeah, I think so. You know, for lower print run figure these days, prices are going to have to go up. We've experienced it with the Legends of the West, or the Dime Novel Legends line. You know, because this is a for-profit business and it has to be, so that you can work on other things afterward, or, you know, go forward with the line. You have to be able to put money in your pocket so you can, you know, invest in sculpts and stuff. You can see that with a print run of 2,000 pieces like we're doing, there's less to make money back on and less to profit on. So the price has to go up. And because it's a lesser print run, your manufacturing cost also goes up. Most factories won't do a print run of figures less than 3,000 per unit. You'll get some that'll do 1,000 or 500 of short runs, but they're usually all one material. They're not two different kinds of materials with lots of paint apps and stuff. So I think that $15 is a great price point on that. So it
actually is.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if we were still getting Pursuit of Cobra style Joes, which is kind of the high watermark for modern G.I. Joe figures, if we were still getting those, I would easily pay $20 a piece for them if I had to. I would rather not, obviously, because money's money, but I think that they definitely were worth that in terms of value. And these days, you know, with the proliferation of 6-inch stuff being what the marketplace is driving towards, and what retailers want to mess with, you know, the factories, the manufacturers figured out real quick, well, for, you know, a few pennies more in manufacturing, we can do this 6-inch figure, which we can then sell for, you know, $10 more than we're selling these 3 3/4, you know, 4-inch versions of stuff. So, you know, the profit potential for them is much higher. So I'm willing to pay more to get Joe's in the scale that I want, just to make sure that it continues to happen at some point in the future. You know, I hope people, I hope collectors, especially G.I. Joe collectors, but I hope collectors in general sit back and look at that and really decide, hey, you know what? If I want to see this, I've got to support it at retail. You can't.
Exactly.
You can't buy it Ross. You can't wait and pick it up at a show. You gotta go out there. You gotta go to Walmart. You gotta go to Kmart. You gotta go whatever your retail store is. You gotta go over there and you've got to buy it, so it shows up on sales on their records, and they'll buy from the manufacturer. You know, if they don't, then it's not going to get made. You know, it's just as simple as that. Because without being able to sell, you know, the majority of your inventory at full price, or all of your inventory at full price, why worry? Why worry with? There's something else you can sell instead. So, and with Toys R Us closing, you're going to see toy manufacturers narrow down their offerings to begin with. They're going to be less willing to experiment, because there's not a retailer out there anymore who's going to take, you know, 90% of what they offer in a line and have a place to retail it. You know, you've got Amazon and stuff like that, but still, that's not the same experience as going into a store, looking at something, trying to find nice paint apps. And, you know, as a collector, that's one of the things I enjoyed doing, was going and looking at figures and trying to find the nicest one and that kind of thing. So, you know, without that experience, without that opportunity, you're not going to have that stuff at retail anymore. So hopefully somebody in the future will come in and replace Toys R Us as a retail location. I know there's been a lot of rumblings of that actually happening, but until something materializes, let's just, you know, take this as a hard lesson learned, and everybody, start putting your money where your mouth is in terms of collecting. I think
Yeah.
I really think that if you really are a fan of something, like I said a while ago, if you really are a fan of something, you're going to figure out a way to make it happen. And if you're not, well, if it's not that important to you, then okay, that's fine. And you're not a lesser fan for it, but your dedication to that, you should take with a grain of salt when something bad happens. Not hop on the internet and be a keyboard cowboy griping and complaining and telling everybody how they ought to do anything. So all these businesses out here, they're for profit, man. They've got to make money. So anyway.
Yeah. We have talked about it. I can't remember if we've had you on since they announced it or not. Next year, June 21st, 2019, and 22nd of June is a Joe Fest and Augusta Toy and Comic Show.
Yeah.
And they had announced you to be on or doing the customizing class.
Right.
Or basically taking your customizing class there.
Well, it'll be a little bit different. Obviously, it's not an officially Hasbro sanctioned, club sanctioned event. So we're not going to be doing G.I. Joes per se. We are going to be doing a figure for the class as we have in the past. It'll be the same format. I already decided on the figure, and we'll make an announcement, pretty soon as to what that is going to be and what parts you'll need. So you have plenty of time. I believe we talked about it just briefly before, but we can go ahead and expand on it a little bit now. I was going to anyway, if we had the time.
Yeah, go ahead.
The class is going to start out. We're going to allow 35 signups. If those sell out quickly, and I hope that they do, we're going to go ahead and bump that up to 50 total. So we'll add another 15 seats. The class is going to take place Friday during the day, from 9 until about 4. That way you'll have time in the class to build and paint and everything else if you want to. I believe, and you'd have to double check with Ed on this, but I believe they're going to have a custom contest so that you'll be able to put stuff out there and be some prize winning and such. I will donate some prize stuff from Broken Arrow and from Chicken Fried Toys to sweeten the pot a little bit. Back to the customizing class, it'll be the same formats. We'll supply some paints and brushes and super glue and things like that. You guys will supply the limbs, arms and legs. Gonna stay with a theme that you're familiar with, so you can take that for what it's worth. Gonna do something a little cool, a little different with the figure that we haven't done so far in any of the classes previously. And I want to say, looking back on the 5 classes that I was involved with directly, and then the other things that I've done for the club over the years, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting all the new faces and seeing the same olds. You guys that make it every year. I hope that y'all will consider coming out to Joe Fest and taking that class and making it a similar experience for everyone. I won't say that Joe Fest is going to be the only venue for this kind of thing. I don't know what we're going to do in the future, but there will be other things I'm sure offered alongside it. But Joe Fest will be the first new one, and let's make it kind of fun. I believe that the price point for this is going to be very reasonable, and that's to be set once we're done crunching all the numbers and figure where everything's at. Make sure that that the class makes money for the show organizers. They need to do that. And can pay for itself, which I'm sure it will, based on past experience. So
in other words, we'll know more than 2 weeks in advance what we'll need. Oh my goodness!
Well, to be fair, this year it was 4 weeks, and that's not bad. I can understand some of the motivations for keeping that close to the vest until it gets closer to the show, but given how difficult to get some parts can be, I don't want to make it any worse than it is already. People have asked in the past, how come we don't do complete figures for the class? And I've done, in some cases, arms before, and the reason for not doing them is because these are resin parts, and resin parts look great and do have some durability, but they're not factory pieces. And if you haven't handled a lot of resin parts before, then you're probably going to break something like an elbow pin or an ankle pin or a wrist pin. And because of that, It does two things to the class. It slows down the class because then I've got to fix them on the fly, so I can't help other people out. And it also gives somebody a product that in the end they can't really play with very much because it's a kind of a trailer baby, if you want to borrow a term from classic car collecting. And it's just better to go ahead and customize with actual limbs where you can find them, or for what's appropriate. This year's build is something very specific, and the arms and legs are very specific, but not that hard to come by. So I think that once we make that announcement here a couple of months down the road, you guys are going to be pleased and excited. The only thing that I can think of that has to be gone over a little bit right now is to decide how we're going to name the characters and stuff, because it's not an officially licensed activity. We want to avoid any problems, any stepping on toes or anything like that with Hasbro or the club, and we're going to figure out how to get around that without causing anybody any trouble. And everybody will be happy in the end, I hope. The figure is going to come the same way it has in the past, in a small bag, separated parts, with a header card that tells a little bit about the character, the location in the show, and what parts are contained in there, and who helped out with the project. So there'll be a little history for each one. I'm trying to think of anything else specific I can give away without giving away anything specific. The contributors this year, obviously, Jesse Wittenreich came up with a design previous that I liked quite a bit. We're going to use that as the basis for something else related to it. Kaylin McKean is doing a unique sculpt part for the figure this year, Gigabread, who's done one every year for us. I'll be bashing together the body and making a few modifications to that. I will say that this year's figure, or that next year's figure for Joe Fest, will have the first bunch of transparent parts that I've done for a class figure. So I'm interested to see what some people do down the road, if they add lighting to it or some LED lights or something to it like that. That'd be super cool. But we'll see. We'll see what everything turns out to be when it's all said and done. And I hope you guys will join us, and that everyone is going to have a good time. And let's make Joe Fest something for everybody to enjoy, and make it a big regional show. That'd be great. I don't know that anything will ever replace JoeCon as it was, but I hope that these regional shows get a little bigger and can kind of step in and take the place of it somewhat.
Right. That's what I was fixing to say is the next one that's kind of I guess a Joe themed show is going to be CoilCon.
Yeah, CoilCon's been around forever. Good stuff.
Right. This is their 9th annual one. There was something that popped up on my thread or somewhere I read this morning where it's a first annual G.I. Joe convention, September 8th and 9th, I think. Can't find it. I'm hoping someone else sees it and reminds me later on somewhere.
Yeah.
But they're going to have a author. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm very horrible with names. But the voice of Destro will be there. It's a one-day thing. I think he's there from 9 to 3. So again, I just don't remember the name of it now. But if you all happen to notice it, someone tag me.
Fly one with the link so we can go ahead and talk about it a little bit. It'd be great to promote that. I think the future of G.I. Joe collecting, since there's not any Hasbro offerings right now, is strictly in the hands of the fans. So it's an opportunity as a fandom for us to come together, I think, without somebody else running the show and put something together, or participate at a level and maintain interest and promotion of G.I. Joe as a brand. Even though there's not a retail offering at the moment. Now, that's not to say there won't be a retail offering again sometime in the future. I know that they have talked publicly about there not being any action figures until the next movie at whatever date that comes out, and I suppose that's to be expected. I'm hoping two things when the figures do come back at some point, that they don't change format. That's the first thing. I don't want to add a new scale of G.I. Joe to my collection that's pre-existing. whether it's a new iteration of GI Joe or more of the classic characters, which I don't think it will be. I think it'll be a new version of GI Joe with new characters. I hope the format and quality stays the same, and I hope that there is a concerted effort to put it into the public eye, and that it doesn't become just a movie line where they do 10 or 12 figures for each movie and that's the end of it, because that's not any profitability for them, to just do a few figures and move on in terms of tooling, return on your tooling dollar and stuff like that. So I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen this year anything from any of the Marvel movies. And that was a real bummer, because Ant-Man and the Wasp needed a 2-pack of figures. The Wasp obviously led that movie as a character, and there's no 3 3/4 version of her in a particular appearance. So that's a bit of a disappointment for me. And there have been other things that have happened, Thanos and such from Infinity War, that could have used a few figures, and if they can't sell enough Marvel related figures in that scale to support a movie line, there's very little hope to hold out for Joe. I don't want to be a downer, but it's just the bald facts of it. So
Yeah, I felt if you wanted a Thanos figure to go buy you some pops. That's what I did. I have a 10-inch Thanos pop. Picked up one while I was down there in Dallas.
Oh, gotcha.
There's only I think 9 pops of Thanos ever made. And I got, I think, 3 or 4 of them. Of course, pops ain't for everybody. I mean,
pops, stab them all.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I thought it was today, but it's actually next Sunday. There's going to be a local pop swap at a GameStop. And this one girl who's actually heading it all up, she had put a picture on the group about the what she was bringing, and right there in the very front is the cloth hooded Cobra Commander pop. That was like an exclusive somewhere, so I was like, claim, it's mine, I want it.
I have very little involvement in pops. I think I told you when we were looking around in my room yesterday. I've got 5 total.
I only saw one, which was that Logan. But
yeah, Logan. Yeah, I've got Brain from Pinky the Brain, the Dragonborn from Skyrim, Ghost from Call of Duty 2, Logan from Days of Future Past, and I forget what the 5th one is, but that's the extent of them. Christie's got some stupid high dollar ones.
Does she? I guess I should have looked at those while I was there.
It's just happenstance. I got her the Royals for Christmas because she's an Anglophile and enjoys that stuff a great deal. And then she picked up the what's the name of that damn TV show? Comes on Showtime. It's written by Ronald D. Moore.
Ballers?
No, it's about the Scottish woman who goes back in time. Her and some guy named Jamie or whatever. Anyway, I don't recall. It wasn't Doctor Who. No, it's. I call it a chick show.
That's why we don't know about
it. It's a lot of romance and fantasy stuff. Anyway, she picked those up, and they're all. I mean, like the main character is a $150 figure now. It's crazy. The one thing I did want to say about pops, and it's something I've noted over the last couple of years, is they've really proliferated and found their niche in the marketplace, and that's good. There needs to be a lot of fandom out there, and not everybody's a fan of everything. So, but there is a tremendous amount of women who really like those figures and actively collect them, and that's not something that you see in an action figure oriented market. Is female collectors, and that's been nice to have that expanded fan base, and I think that's really cool. I dig it. So I mean, like you said, your wife likes them too. So
yeah, matter of fact, that you mentioned that we actually she has the Royals as well. And she has those, and Snow White and 7 Dwarfs, all of the variations, exclusives, which is 4, 6, 8, 10.
Oh, the name of that
12 total.
The name of that stupid show I couldn't remember is Outlander. She loves it. Talks with all of her lady friends about it. So
okay,
yeah.
So Sarah's did a couple things, and we're going to work on getting the I Love Lucy ones. There's only like 5 of those, and then Gracie likes certain ones, and then she likes she watches Once Upon a Time.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so she wants all those as well. She has 2 or
Hey,
3 of
I
those.
haven't seen my cat since you guys and Gracie left yesterday. Did she steal my cat?
No, we saw that fat cat running around. I told you we already got 4 of our own damn cats. I don't need no one else's damn cat.
Well, it's nice that she enjoyed spending time getting to know Jinx. Jinx liked her quite a bit too,
Yeah,
evidently.
she kept running around
Yeah.
shaking that bag of food,
Mm.
trying to get her to come over, and then she tried to pick her up. Like, don't you pick that cat up? That's a big cat.
Well, like I said about the little grill out barbecue thing, I'd like to do it a little more often, and if we can get people to dedicate time to it and come down a couple times a year, that'd be great. Anybody, just FYI, if anybody is interested in the area, within a couple hours driving distance or whatever, we'll do this at least once or twice a year. Barbecue and swap meet at my place. Well, we're going to try to rotate them around to some of the other local guys here, so you guys can see other parts of Dallas and stuff. Usually, everybody gets together, hamburgers and hot dogs and so forth and so on.
Right.
You
Well, I was
know,
going to say, it'd be if you're in the, you know, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth area. I mean, hell, I drove 4.5 hours and got a speeding ticket
and
on
got
the
a
way
speeding
down.
ticket. Well, that's because you got a lead foot there, cowboy.
Yeah. Luckily, he gave me the lesser of the 2 evils of the speeding. So, but yeah,
That's
it was fun. I enjoyed going down there. Doing a couple other things. And really just, like I said, here locally in Arkansas, we don't have a whole lot
yeah.
of guys who want to get together to do this kind of thing. So I don't mind driving 4.5 hours away
I'm
with
glad it
people I
wasn't just a trip
know.
down here to have a hamburger, that you guys had a couple other things on your agenda. I do have something I wanted to mention very briefly. I've gotten a couple of questions on Kickstarter about the Dime Novel Legends figures, about ship dates, and we've been pushed a couple of times, and there've been delays, and that that just happens. There's nothing you can do about it. But I'm not going to issue a definitive date until I have something concrete that's not going to change, simply because I don't want to keep setting you guys up for disappointment. Like I said, there's only been 1 or 2 people that have said anything, and they've certainly not been, grouchy about it. But I'm not going to put a date on it until we know for sure. We'll announce something before the manufacturing actually begins, after we're through the deco process, and obviously way before they're on the water. What will happen as we get to that date, as they get ready to start shipping over here, which will take 4 or 5 weeks, I'll contact everybody through Backer Kit, where you've done your package fulfillment, any extras and add-ons, and we'll verify addresses. So anybody whose address has changed or anything that's different, you've got you're in the military, you've been restationed, or whatever, you'll be able to change it then, and we'll have everything updated so that your package finds you where you're supposed to be. But like I said, up until we have something concrete that's not going to change due to potential delays, I'm not going to give out another date, except to say that it will be this year. So I know that's a bit of a disappointment. I'm a bit disappointed about it, but instead of promising one thing and not being able to deliver, we'll just have to leave it a little bit nebulous for the moment. I hope that you guys understand and are as anxious as we are to see this thing completed and get on into series 1.5 and 2. I will say that once we have a definitive date, I'll go ahead and put together the Kickstarter information for series 1.5, which will be the horses and the additional 5 figures and some other offerings, so that you guys can consider what you're going to want to do with that. As we get closer to the actual ship date, then we'll set up a date for that Kickstarter, and you guys will be able to go ahead and pledge for that if you like. But I can understand right now nobody wants to put any more money out until we've got something on the way for delivery, and that's absolutely reasonable. I would feel the same way in any other Kickstarter I participated in. So
The next Kickstarter is going to be me. I'm going to get Tiger Force Mike and Battle Force Fred.
Tiger Force Cowboy Mike.
There you go, buddy. Belongs to that bad boy. Orange scarf. There you go. Look at that. Look, you need a model. Here I am.
Oh God, you'd break the camera.
Shit, well, I would, buddy. We would sell hand over fist. All the ladies out there want to get some Tiger Force Mike. This was going to be a short episode anyway. So it was just 2 of us. But our next episode will be back on regular Saturday. It will be September the 1st. I believe Fred will still be out. There was 3 next shows, and I believe he'll be back on the 15th, unless something on that changes. If not, we'll reach out to people who have been on the show before in the past to help out. I'm going to try to go ahead and work up a guest for that show as well, and just so we have something to talk about besides club stuff, I guess.
Mm.
By then, we'll actually already have another FSS.
Yeah.
If you haven't noticed, the shipping labels were created this past Tuesday. So
I don't ever get a notification for that. So,
well, I don't either. I just go to the US app.
Okay.
I go to the app where my address is saved, and anytime someone makes a shipping label for my address, it pops up right there.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. You're more tech savvy than I am, Mike.
Not by much. Not by much. So we're going to work on a guest. I know Bobby's wanting to come on and talk. It's just it hasn't planned out for him to be, stuff hasn't panned out for him show wise. Something we have a show, he's doing something else.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get Bobby on. We're going to reach out to some other stuff. If you have I know we're going to start working on sometime in September. We're going to get the guys on from QuilCon to talk about their show in October. And if you're doing a local convention that is GI Joe based, hit us up. You want to talk about it. We don't have a big reach, but I know the word gets out there. I think, and the viewership is watched pretty high for what GI Joe is. So I'm sure we can get some viewers to notice what you have going on, stuff of that nature. So
well, it's never too early to promote next year's Great Texas GI Joe and Action Figures show here in Dallas. Just saying.
Yeah, when is that one again?
I don't have the exact dates, but it'll be sometime in the late spring. I will find that so the next time I'm on, we can talk about it. It is a great
May or June this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks before JoeCon this year.
So probably sometime in June.
First weekend in June. So it's a great local show put on by a great bunch of local volunteers from the local branch of the GI Joe Collectors Club. They're mostly 12-inch guys, but there is a good core of 3 3/4 people in there, and we've got
there was.
We got to get some folks to show up and to put down and to do some shopping and stuff there. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. I'll get the information correct so that I'm not giving everybody out the false dates.
Maybe we need to get a booth together, John.
Hey, I'm down. I haven't been able to do a booth there the last 2 years because it's been so close to the GI Joe convention that I haven't had time. I'm very much looking forward to going back because as a local show, it's a great moneymaker for me. And while this is not all about money, I have to make something so that Christy doesn't gripe at me.
The door shut back there. I'll make sure she hears you.
Should have waited until I'm off the podcast and come in and smack me in the back of the head later.
That's usually how mine is too.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, everybody, we appreciate the very few who did watch. Hopefully, more y'all watch in the afters. Even though it was a Sunday, I was going to do one there yesterday, but then rain and
logistics.
I'll just do it.
Yeah. Although that would have been a nice party atmosphere on the mic.
It would have been, but it was just so much going on.
Well, maybe next time you're down, if it's on a Saturday, we'll put something together. Get a few local personalities over here. Get old Gray Childs and Espo and Josh and those guys.
We'll be on there forever. Get Gray on there.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. And also, if you're in if you got a collection you want to showcase, send me the pictures through Facebook somewhere, and we like to show off your collections. We want to see people's collections, troop building, stuff of that nature.
Collections along with an address, so you can go rob them blind.
See, I wouldn't have gone all there. I would just found out what their name was, seeing what city they were in. I would have gone a little legwork into stuff of the address. You've
seen how bad mine looks. Once it's done, 6 or 7 years from now, I'll see pictures.
And I know where you live.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good weekend.
Thanks a lot, guys, for watching.
Take care.